So in this video we're going to talk about writing, how it came to be in the ancient world. Writing is the most revolutionary technology ever developed by human beings. And it's most useful to think about it as a technology. This is something that was invented in order to accomplish something amongst humans. This was something that was invented in order to make something possible. In this case, to conquer time and space. Writing was developed and invented for the purpose of communicating in a way that humans cannot, across space, across long distances, across time to future generations. This is one of the key elements of civilization. This is one of the reasons why writing develops at the same time as civilization itself. Whenever there's a new civilization that develops in the ancient world, it develops a writing system at very close to the same time. And this is because one of the purposes of civilization is to be able to create a stable present and to ensure a stable future. And in order to do this, you need to go beyond the present. You need to go beyond the immediate, beyond the local. You need to deal with what exists beyond your immediate vicinity. But most of all, you need to ensure that you can communicate everything that you've learned, everything that is possible, and the tools to make more things possible to future generations. And writing is an extremely effective way of doing this. So let's talk about kinds of writing systems. There's essentially, and this is actually even now somewhat controversial, the ways to categorize writing systems has been argued and debated, and still is not firmly agreed amongst all the people that study writing. The main thing is that writing is not the same as language. Language is the means by which people communicate with each other through speech, and writing systems are a technology used to convey information across space and time. Writing systems involve moving language into written form. The writing systems are not the same as language. And so it's important, if you talk about a writing system, some writing systems are used by many languages. Some languages do not have a writing system. One is essentially a social thing, used as part of the bonds between human beings in a society. And one is a technology that is used to facilitate the stability and prosperity of that society. So, kinds of writing systems, broadly speaking, there's a category known as logographic. This has sometimes been referred to as pictographic. The basic idea here is to take something that is in the world around us and draw it, to show an image of it. And you put a picture of a mountain, or an eye, or a female genitalia on a surface, and show that to somebody else, and they can know exactly what you mean without any communication needing to take place. And so this is often the earliest form of writing system. Are the ones that develop in the Mediterranean world essentially start out this way. But there's, as you can imagine, the thing that you would ask yourself is, okay, so what's the problem going to be with logography? What is the limitation of using pictures of things in the world around us that these systems are all going to have in common? And essentially, it involves, well, how do you communicate something that you can't draw a picture of? This sort of falls into two sort of general categories, abstract ideas and this kind of thing, and things that are things that are not concrete objects like names, things that have to be represented by spoken word. And so logographic systems often have a great deal of difficulty in being fully versatile in communicating everything that can be taken in the human spoken world. Another kind of writing system that often develops out of the logographic is syllabic, where you have a symbol that stands for the first syllable of a word. And so this is often a consonant plus a vowel. Syllabic systems offer opportunities to convey things that can't be easily done pictographically, can't easily be done with images, but and so often, a syllabic form will be used alongside a logographic form in order to convey people's names and other kinds of concepts. But we run into the problem where once you start to do that, then it is bolted onto the language that it comes from. You can use a picture of a mountain, and that same picture can be used whether you're speaking, Sumerian or Babylonian or Egyptian or, Chinese, whatever. A picture of a mountain will convey that idea. But once you're using the first syllable of that to convey a sound, then you are bound to the language that you're using, whether it's, noun from English or some other word from some other language. And so it becomes less versatile, less adaptable, less flexible, and less portable. In some ways, a transformative, revolutionary form of writing system developed in the Iron Age is the phonetic writing system. A writing system that can be that is simply representative of sounds. It's not bound to any language, and it's not bound to any pictures. It can be used in any language, in any scenario, as long as you can represent what you're trying to say by sound. And so here's some examples from the ancient world. One of the earliest forms of writing is Cuneiform, the writing system used in Sumer. And Cuneiform was originally developed for use on wet clay, being drawn with a stylus, in the way that you see here. And it starts out as a pictographic thing, but you can see even in this example that we start to move away from things that are readily identifiable as, this is a face, this is a fish, this is the sun, so forth and so on. It becomes more abstract, and with cuneiform in particular, it becomes more stylized and less representative the more time goes on. There's two reasons for this. One is at some point during the Bronze Age, the way in which this writing was done shifted away from the stylus being dragged through the clay and toward a stamp being pressed into the clay, one with a triangular shape at the end. You have different stamps of different lengths, and so this made writing much easier in the sense that you're not constantly dragging through the clay. But as you're pressing these stamps, you end up with the problem of constantly having to turn your wrist, and so these symbols morph more and more in the direction where the fewest number of wrist turns and the fewest number of changing of stamps or turning of stamps is required. So, but the second reason is that the people that do the writing become interested in ensuring the power that comes from controlling information. And we see this over and over in history. Writing systems become the proprietary possession of a class of scribes that hold on to writing and want to preserve their power over communication. And so the more abstruse, the more obscure the writing system becomes, the more it empowers the people that learn it and control it and pass it on to the select few that apprentice with them. And so we see something similar happen in Egypt. The hieroglyphics that develop in Egypt more or less at the same time. Both cuneiform and hieroglyphics are developing around 5,000 years ago, somewhere around 3000 BCE. And hieroglyphics start out as a logographic system that uses images of objects in the physical world, but the use of these images becomes more abstract, more symbolic, and it becomes more and more the property of the priestly class that controls information, that controls history, that controls communication as well as religion. The Egyptian solution to the problem of representing names, which is obviously going to be very important in telling the stories of great pharaohs and the gods, is the cartouche, in which the first syllable of a particular hieroglyph is used to represent a name. So in the image we see here, the oval with a line at one end tells us that this is a cartouche, that therefore it is to be read syllabically, and that the line represents at which end is the beginning of the name. And writing also transforms according to the medium. So hieroglyphics and develop in stone, and as with cuneiform, which morphed according to the needs of the medium that it was in, hieroglyphics started to change and become more fluid once it was also being committed to a writing surface. In this case, papyrus. Papyrus is made by the weaving together of very thin, wet reeds of the papyrus plants, and you can see the woven texture of the papyrus in this image. And the result of using ink on paper or papyrus or whatever is it becomes more fluid. It tends to encourage the development of a cursive, and this also moves in the direction of narrowing the accessibility of the writing system. Entirely syllabic systems start to develop later on in the Bronze Age in Minoan Crete, in the earliest great civilization of the Aegean world before the Greeks. We see the development of linear A, which we can tell it's a syllabic writing system, but we can't translate it. We haven't been able to crack linear A because we don't know the language and we don't know the writing system. And so this is largely opaque to us. What we do know about linear A comes mainly from the fact that when the Greeks came, halfway through the Bronze Age, they took the writing system of the Minoans and adapted it to their language, the Greek language. And so linear B is also a syllabic writing system, but we can line it up with this early form of Greek. And so this becomes something that is accessible to us. And by the way, if you ever want to become tremendously famous, you can do what Michael Ventris did and crack a previously obscure writing system, in this case linear B. So if you want to have a go at linear A, you can become famous. The story of how Michaelentus did this, and likewise the story of the translation of the hieroglyphs, which were lost to humanity for many centuries. Both of these are very interesting books that are fascinating reading. But in the Iron Age, we see the development of truly phonetic writing systems. One of the earliest of these, and most important, is the Phoenician writing system. The Phoenician writing system sort of develops out of the milieu of the written fluid form of hieroglyphics, which eventually becomes something called demotic, which is a written form of the Egyptian language. But the Phoenician becomes important because not only is it phonetic, the Phoenicians travel all over the Mediterranean, and this phonetic writing system is easily transported into the cultures that they meet. And so peoples all around the Mediterranean that did not have writing systems were able to take and adapt the writing system of the Phoenicians. And so we have the Greeks, which had lost their writing system during the Dark Age after the collapse of the Bronze Age civilization. The Greeks pick up a writing system from the Phoenicians and adapt it to their language. The Etruscans in Italy, and the Latins, the people that the Romans come from, all of these also pick up the Phoenician system, and this has the effect of spreading information, spreading literacy, spreading the ability to progress civilizations all around the Mediterranean. The logographic systems had been very important in the Bronze Age, but they couldn't be very easily adapted into the new peoples as they come along. The cuneiform of the Sumerians was geared toward the language of Sumer, and so later peoples that settled in the same place that spoke an entirely different kind of language tried to use cuneiform, but it was so difficult to use with Semitic languages, with the Babylonian and Assyrian and so forth. It was so difficult to use because it was fundamentally a logographic language that was mired in its source language. That writing became even more the province of the very few that studied all their lives. But a phonetic system meant that laws could be posted in public for all to see, and that all different kinds of people could partake of literature and to know how to participate in public debate. The development of a writing system that is truly accessible changed the world, because it meant not only that writing could be used to communicate across great distances and across time to future generations, but it could be used to reinforce the bonds that make a society possible and make it strong within itself. And it also makes it possible for not only the few to express express knowledge, to express ideas, to create knowledge and create ideas and communicate that to others, but for the many to do that as well, for knowledge to be the property of the many, and not just the few. And this is something that has, in the information age, become exponentially even more important until we get to the point where the writing becomes one of the most fundamental characteristics of human society, and that is that